Hello, future lawyers. This is the first part of our Criminal Law 1 Flashcards audio. Let's get this started. Criminal law is a branch of municipal law which defines crimes, treats of their nature, and provides for their punishment. The revised penal code contains the general penal laws of the Philippines, the persons liable, and the penalties. Jurisdiction is defined as the power and authority of a court to hear, try, and decide a case. The place where the crime was committed determines not only the venue of the action, but is an essential element of jurisdiction. However, if the evidence adduced during the trial shows that the offense was committed somewhere else, the court should dismiss the action for want of jurisdiction. Article 2. Application of its provisions. Except as provided in the treaties and laws of preferential application, the provisions of the Code shall be enforced not only within the Philippine archipelago, including its atmosphere, its interior waters, and maritime zone, but also outside of its jurisdiction against those who, number 1, should commit an offense while on a Philippine ship or airship. 2. Should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency note of the Philippine Islands or obligations and securities issued by the government of the Philippine Islands. 3. Should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into these islands of obligations and securities mentioned in the preceding number. Number 4, while being public officers or employees, should commit an offense in the exercise of their function. Or 5, should commit any of the crimes against national security and the laws of nations defined in Title 1 of Book 2 of this Code. The Generality Principle. The provisions of this code shall be binding to all who live and sojourn in the Philippines, except as provided in the treaties and laws of preferential application. The Supreme Court has held that a consul is not exempt from criminal prosecution for violations of the laws of the country where he resides. The territoriality principle. It is a fundamental rule that for jurisdiction to be acquired by courts in criminal cases, the offense should have been committed or any one of its essential ingredients took place within the territorial jurisdiction of the court. Territorial jurisdiction in criminal cases is the territory where the court has jurisdiction to take cognizance or to try the offense allegedly committed therein by the accused. Thus, it cannot take jurisdiction over a person charged with an offense allegedly committed outside of that limited territory. The French rule and the English rule. The point at issue is whether the courts of the Philippines have jurisdiction over crime like the one herein involved committed aboard merchant vessels anchored in our jurisdiction waters. There are two fundamental rules on this particular matter in connection with international law, to wit, the French rule, according to which crimes committed aboard a foreign merchant vessel should not be prosecuted in the courts of the country within whose territorial jurisdiction they were committed, unless their commission affects the peace and security of the territory. And the English rule, based on the territorial principle and followed in the United States, according to which crimes perpetrated under such circumstances are in general triable in the courts of the country within territory they were committed. Of these two rules, it is the last one that obtains in this jurisdiction because at present the theories and jurisprudence prevailing in the United States on this matter are authority in the Philippines, which is now a territory of the United States. Okay, this is a 1922 case. So, moving on, the classical theory. Under the classical theory on which our penal code is mainly based, the basis of criminal liability is human free will. Man is essentially a moral creature with an absolutely free will to choose between good and evil. When he commits felonious and criminal act, the act is presumed to have been done voluntarily, that is, with freedom, intelligence, and intent. Man, therefore, should be adjudged or held accountable for wrongful acts so long as his free will appears unimpaired. Our revised penal code belongs to the classical school of thought. The identity of mens rea, defined as a guilty mind, a guilty or wrongful purpose or criminal intent, is the predominant consideration. Thus, it is not enough to do what the law prohibits. In order for an intentional felony to exist, it is necessary that the act be committed by means of dolo or malice. Article 3. Definition. Acts and omissions punishable by law are felonies. Felonies are committed not only by means of deceit, but also by means of fault. There is deceit when the act is performed with deliberate intent, and there is fault when the wrongful act results from imprudence, negligence, lack of foresight, or lack of skill. In evaluating felonies committed by means of culpa, three elements are indispensable, namely intelligence, freedom of action, and negligence. Obviously, intent is wanting in such felonies. However, intelligence remains as an essential element. Acts mala inse and acts mala prohibita. The rule on the subject is that in acts mala inse, the intent governs, but in acts mala prohibita, the only inquiry is, has the law been violated? Generally, mala inse felonies are defined and penalized in the revised penal code. When the acts complained of are inherently immoral, they are deemed mala inse, even if they are punished by a special law. In crimes that are mala prohibita, the criminal acts are not inherently immoral, but become punishable only because the law says they are forbidden. With these crimes, the sole issue is whether the law has been violated. Pro reo principle. In our constitutional system, basic and elementary is the presupposition that the burden of proving the guilt of an accused lies on the prosecution, which must rely on the strength of its own evidence and not on the weakness of the defense. The rule is invariable, whatever may be the reputation of the accused, for the law presumes his innocence unless and until the contrary is shown. In dubio pro reo, when moral certainty as to culpability hangs in the balance, acquittal on reasonable doubt inevitably becomes a matter of right. Thank you all for watching and see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye.